Okay, so good morning, people. So last class we had looked at the two of those kingdoms, Kingdom Monera and Kingdom Protista, which were more of the unicellular species, and Kingdom Monera specifically was prokaryotic, and the Protista was eukaryotic. So that was the biggest difference, and of course there were some like characteristics which were involved. Now, the third kingdom that we are going to look at is the kingdom fungi. Again, most of the characteristic you are aware because this category or this kingdom you would know a little better. These are multicellular, eukaryotic, and most importantly, they are saprophytic. Earlier, most of them they were either autotrophic or heterotrophic parasitic, right? These ones, the kingdom fungi, they are majorly saprophytic. Can someone remind me again what was saprophytic?
So, which are dead.
No. Hello. Which are
which make their food into a sap and then digest it.
no.
In my notes, I've written slime molds are saprophytic.
They are saprophytic, but what does it mean by being saprophytic? Anyone? We had said there are two types of heterotrophic nutrition. One was parasitic, where they take nutrition from the other living organism, and the second one was saprophytic, which takes their nutrition from dead or decaying organisms or degrading organisms, which are already dead and now they are like becoming on the verge of becoming fossils, like not fossils, but yeah, kind of just dead. That's saprophytic. So you will see the fungi not on any fresh surface anywhere. You will always see them at like in jungle where there are a lot of leaves which are fallen down, or the wood on the like stem or the bark of the trees and so on, right? So that's the saprophytic nature, which is heterotrophic type of nutrition. So please make a note of this saprophytic word, yeah, which is obtaining nutrition from dead or decaying organisms, and parasitic was obtaining nutrition from other living organisms while the organism is still alive. Saprophytic is while the organism is dead and then you obtain the nutrition. Fungi. Parasitic worms that they grow in your stomach. Ishan, you want to say something?
Like hookworms, right?
Sorry?
Hookworms and tapeworms.
Yeah. Most of those worm categories, they are parasitic in nature. So now the basic arrangement of structure of this fungi category is that they are made up of thread-like hyphae. So if you look at this particular connecting network within the growing fungi, like this is specifically called as braid fungus, right? So that one has a thread-like hyphae because it has thread-like connection. Like connections, hyphae. That's when I asked you to sit where you can see the screen.
So what is so you don't have to write what you say, sir.
No, that also you have to look and observe also some of
What
it.
is hyphae?
Hyphae is that connecting link between two fungus. Yeah. So and like usually what we have is like single cell in connections, but in case of hyphae it is multi-nucleated thread-like structure, right? So it's kind of tubular structure which is a thread-like in arrangement, and it has can have many nuclei also.
So what is the spelling, sir?
HYPHAE. And yeah, so the nuclei they are distributed in throughout the cytoplasm. That's the hyphae structure, and this is just one type of braid fungus that is being shown. Again, you would have commonly seen it, but not at this microscopic level. But I'm sure yes. So that is something which is like a typical example. Yes.
Yeah, sir, sorry for pointing this out right now, but we didn't actually finish Kingdom Monera. The last point you said was that it is divided into Archaeopteryx and Eukaryotes.
I guess that was the last one.
No, I thought there was another story.
No, see, we've done.
This we had done.
No, Kingdom Monera.
Monera surely we had finished.
Monera was the first one.
No, but then still.
Okay, I guess yes. We come back.
What is toadstool?
Mushroom kind.
These are different examples of what we say from the kingdom fungi. Braid mold, like I said, you commonly know braid fungus, that is braid mold. Toadstool is something that you don't see that common. These are usually the poisonous one. So you don't see them that commonly around us. Mushroom, you would have surely seen commonly observed things, especially in the Sahyadri campus. There are quite a lot of them. And if you closely observe these two, there is not much of difference between mushroom and the toadstool. This one is the yeast, again something that you commonly use in the baking, whether baking, excuse me, here, baking of the cakes and stuff, you use yeast, and this is the commonly found yeast. This is one of the example, like again, I'm assuming that most of you would have heard of penicillin, right? So that penicillin is obtained from this fungus called as Penicillium Crysogen. There are different varieties of this Penicillium fungus. So the Penicillium is the genus, and this is kind of petri dish with agar nutrient medium on which the fungus is grown, and a very tiny part of it is what is enlarged in this figure. So that's how the fungus looks like. Ultimately, all of these, they are having similar structure at the end.
In toadstool, where is the fungi?
This is the fungi.
Toadstool
red
itself
thing.
is the fungi.
Whole of this is fungus.
So
When we
So
say
mushroom,
I am a
no.
human, do you ask where is your human? No, it's the whole body is the fungus.
So even
Something.
mushroom is the fungus.
Mushroom is the fungus.
And we eat it.
so what is chicken?
Huh? Chitin. I will come to that point, right?
I heard chicken.
So the distinct characteristic that this fungus category was separate from other eukaryotes is their cell wall content. Most of the other eukaryotic organism, they contained a cell wall which is made up of proteins or polysaccharides and so on. But the fungus category or the kingdom fungi had chitin, which is one of the chemical compounds. So let me show you the structure of this chitin molecule. It is relatively complex. It's again a polymer, like you know of glucose, right? So when we know of glucose, it's something like this, but it has this amide group, CONH group, and that is the difference between the regular hexose kind of sugars and this chitin molecule. And there are multiple of these units, and it's like a polymer. So that's the structural information of this chitin molecule. So that's the one of the major difference between the other eukaryotes and the fungi. Okay,
What is the purpose of it?
it's component of the cell wall. Okay, so few other characteristics of this kingdom fungi, they are filamentous. Filamentous means they are like filament like or thread like, except the yeast, which is single celled. But again, if you look at the yeast, there is always a kind of connecting bird, what we call as yeast bird. So that is always present next to it. So it's kind of connecting to each other. But otherwise, yes,
So yeast is a fungi, right?
yes.
Oh,
separate category within fungi.
Separate category then.
Sir,
Huh?
so all the fungi are multicellular other than yeast.
Yeah. Means yeast, a single cell, this is a single cell, right? But usually they grow in like groups, right? But it's like whole cell does whatever, like all the functions. So that's the difference.
But for normal fungi, you need all the different cells to perform one.
Yeah, correct.
What's the character, has the purpose of chitin?
It's the component of the cell wall.
What does it do? What's its
Cell
special
wall.
characteristics? It's just a thing that it contains.
So if you want to know the properties of this chitin molecule, it's relatively more stable compared to the cellulose or protein and polysaccharide like molecule. Right. So if you have ever touched this mushroom, right, it's kind of slimy,
Yeah.
right? And at the same time, it's tough also compared to the regular cells. So that is the difference between, like, at larger level.
So can you once repeat? Saprophytic is feeds on dead and decreasing material.
Correct.
What was the other one?
Parasitic.
Parasitic.
Okay, so so that was the filamentous nature of this fungi, and like we said it earlier, there is a slender, long thread-like constructions or the arrangement which is called as hyphae, and the web network of this hyphae is called mycelium. So if you look at this braid, so there will be something like connecting between two neighboring bunch of fungi or a group of fungal species, right? And this network connection is called as mycelium. So individually, this connecting thread is called as hyphae, and the network of this hyphae is called as mycelium or mycelia. Mycelium is singular, mycelia, LIA, that will be the plural form of it. So that's the connection between the fungus, not fungi, right? So that is the different structures present. Then some of the hyphae, they are unbroken tubes which are jam-packed with the multinucleated cytoplasm. And like, again, if you look at this tubular structure, that is completely present. These other tubes which are not able to see completely connected, they might be connected or they might be broken between their neighboring fungal species, right? So that way, this connection of the tubes can be broken or can be intact, but it will have this multinucleated cytoplasm. And such hyphae, they are called as cynocytic. But again, this you can forget because this is not part of the syllabus. But if you want to remember, the unbroken tubular structure of this hyphae is called as cynocytic, right? Cynocytic hyphae.
So the ones that are broken don't have multinucleated cytoplasm.
Have multinucleated cytoplasm as well, because but it depends on how many nuclei are there already present, and if they are broken, they might have just single nuclei, right? So it depends. But if it is like already old hyphae structure, it will have many nuclei. And it's just a simple thing, like, you know, most of the long tubular structure, I guess we had seen that in case of mussels also, because they are long tubular, to provide the signal from one area where the nucleus is present to the other end in the cytoplasm, it takes long time, right? To enhance this process of signaling or metabolism or whatsoever has to happen with the cell, that's when there are many nuclei in a tubular cell or elongated cells. That's the simplest mechanism. So the other type of hyphae which has cross walls or septa, again, there is something called as multinucleated hyphae, and there is something called as septate hyphae. Septate means if there is a septum or there is a kind of section or there is a partition, and that type of hyphae will be called as septate hyphae. So cynocytic, and septate. I hope these parts are clear to you. Huh.
So in fungi, there's a part called hyphae that is like thread-like. What is its purpose?
Connection, providing nutrition.
Oh, okay. And when there are a lot of hyphae, it is called mycelium, right?
Yeah, not a lot of hyphae, a network of hyphae.
Sir, so are hyphae like roots?
Yeah, kind of, but cannot be really directly compared. But something like that.
What was filamentous?
So they absorb nutrition from the organism there.
Yeah, wherever they are growing.
What was filamentous again?
Filamentous, like a filament.
Like thread-like.
Yeah, thread-like.
So why is yeast excluded?
Yeast is the only
Because it's a single-celled. No? It's not a thread-like structure. It's a bird-like structure. You can see it's like those capsules-like structure.
To me, it looks like cactus.
Yeah, or cactus. Like I said, chitin is one of the component of the cell wall, and it is also a type of polysaccharide, but it is amide type of polysaccharide. That is, it contains NH2, CONH2 group. So that's the difference than the regular polysaccharide.
Comprises slender,
Comprises slender.
Second point.
Slender structure. So you people pay attention while I'm talking. I guess we are going back again and again to the points. All of you. Okay, so most of the fungi, they are saprophytic and are heterotrophic. So this we had already discussed. Now some of the fungi, they can also survive as symbionts. Does anyone know this word?
No.
Symbiosis?
Yeah.
What
When
is
two different organisms work in harmony to like help each other survive.
Correct. So, these symbionts refer to the organisms which live in harmony with each other. So they are neither parasitic nor saprophytic, but they survive with benefit of each other. So for example, some of the fungal species, they do degrade certain chemicals, and that is being used by the other species as a nutrition. So that way, and fungi takes nutrition from that plant or animal or whatsoever it is. So that way it keeps on growing.
So is it like I saw in a book that symbiosis, there's this bull with like some birds on it. The birds eat the insects on the bull, and then the bull is also clean. Right?
Yeah, that's something like symbiosis, correct.
We need to learn this term polysaccharides.
Polysaccharides.
We need to know that term.
Yeah. So some fungi, they are symbionts, so they follow the symbiosis type of nutrition. Some are parasitic. Some of them, these are in association with the algae. For example, lichen. So in your masala, there is something called as dagad, right? Which is a kind of grayish compound or material, you can say. What was it? Lichens. Lichens, these are actually the mixture of fungus and algae. That's what is lichen. This is very commonly seen around. ये नहीं मसाले में डालते. There is something else. I will show.
This also gathering, right?
Sorry.
Sir,
So lichen helps in weathering, right?
See this one. Oh, not this one. Yeah, okay. You can see the picture here, right? This is something which is like a mixture of
What is it again?
lichens.
399.
sir, they're on the Python rocks.
Yeah.
Amazon.
Yeah,
So
like
this is a part of your masala, right? Spices. Whatever you have, that garam masala, it's actually contains this stone flour.
So we can taste, we can eat the thing on we can, yeah, basically.
Yeah, this you can eat for sure. There are some fungi which are edible, some are non-edible, some are poisonous. that way.
Poisonous वाला खा लिया तो क्या होगा?
कुछ नहीं होगा.
So the mushroom that we eat is also fungi, sir.
Sorry.
So the mushroom that we eat is fungi, but it's edible.
Yes.
So, मतलब third point समझा वो आपको समझ
Which third point?
Sir,
Yes, Isha.
sure. Yeah. Why are non-edible fungi non-edible?
Because they are some of them they cannot be digested. Some of them they don't grow in like what we say good conditions. Right, what we said is most of the fungi are saprophytic. Now let's assume that there is a decaying plant, and if some fungi is growing on top of it, do you think you will eat that? Of course not.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, we can give it to these gawalas. Okay, so that is the fungi. So you want to know the third point.
Yes.
Right? So it simply says when the connection between two fungi, which we call as hyphae, if it is unbroken, it will have multinucleated cytoplasm, and it is called as sinusotic hyphae.
So when there's different two fungi and they are connected by hypha and the connection is not broken, it is
Sinusotic hyphae.
So, are bees and flowers symbiotes?
Bees and flowers, kind of, yes.
No.
But flowers, no. Plants, yes. Flower is a part of the
Plants.
Okay. So I hope that part is clear. So some of the symbiont fungi they live in association with algae, which is like combination of fungi and algae, which is we simply called as lichen, which is a category. And one of the example that I showed you is that stone flower or the gadful, which we eat in the spices. Some symbiont fungi they live in association with the roots of higher plants, and they are called as mycorrhiza. Myco stands for fungus, and this whole category of kingdom fungi, it's also called as mycota. MYCOTA, mycota. So that's why that myco, and rhiza because it is connected to the roots. So mycorrhiza are these type of fungi which live in symbiosis with the roots of the plants. So that is just two example. Lichen, which is a combination of fungi plus algae, that is lichen. Mycorrhiza are a type of fungi which are the fungi in association with the roots of the plant.
So why is it written higher plants?
Higher plants because like lower plants like grass and stuff, usually they don't have nutrition for themselves, right? Higher plants, they have quite a lot of nutrition, and it is easier for them to shell out some more nutrition to the other species, and that's why it is specifically higher plants. Any question?
So
Anyone?
what's the name Mycorrhiza?
Mycorrhiza.
Right.
Mycota was the name for the fungus.
Oh.
Mycota category.
So what is Mycorrhiza?
That's the fungi with the living on the roots in symbiosis.
What is septe mean?
Septi means partition.
Okay, cross.
Sir, I didn't get this point.
Which point? The cell wall is
Polysaccharides.
composed of polysaccharides. So saccharides means carbohydrate, poly means many. So it is a polymer of simpler carbohydrates. An example is chitin, which is present in the fungi.
Okay.
Okay, any questions here so far in the kingdom fungi?
Can you go on the next slide?
Does anyone have any question? So what you need to remember in this is what is the type. They are multicellular, eukaryotic, and most of them they are saprophytic. Then the structural arrangement, they have hyphae, which is a thread-like structure. They are connected to each other through a web-like network of hyphae that is called as mycelium. The cell wall or cell consists of chitin molecule, which is a type of polysaccharide, and then within that the structural arrangement, you know it, like in terms of yeast, that is the only unicellular type of fungi, and which grows by budding mechanism. Then yeah, the bud formation, that is what is budding. And some of the fungi which are in symbiosis with algae, they are called lichens, and the fungi which are in symbiosis with the roots of the higher plants, that is mycorrhizae. So that is like a quick summary of whole of this kingdom fungi.
Sir, can you give an example of parasite fungi?
So there is this category called as Basidiomycetes.
Category.
Yeah. If you want to know individual names, even this Penicillium Crysogen, that's also parasitic because it always grows on other organisms. Okay, but again, you are not expected to remember the names.
Yeah, but I just wanted to know. Heterotrophic are the ones that feed on the.
Yes.
Is the last point necessary?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so again, there is a small video. You can go and watch it on your own. It's just a revision of this. So you can just do it on your own later. Then the next kingdom that we'll come to is the kingdom Plantae, right? Again, these are multicellular, eukaryotic, and these are autotrophic. I hope you are able to visualize now last three kingdom along with the kingdom Plantae. First one, kingdom Monera, unicellular, prokaryotic. Second, Protista was unicellular, eukaryotic. Third one, it was multicellular, eukaryotic, and saprophytic, or mostly heterotrophic, you can say. Then kingdom Plantae is multicellular, eukaryotic, and autotrophic. That means they are able to synthesize their own food. And again, that includes many categories. For example, Thallophyta. So if you remember, we were discussing at some time point about the thallus organization, right? Thallus is the differentiation of the root and stem. So Thallophyta, they don't have such differentiation, and that type is algae. Bryophytes, which are mosses. Again, you would know commonly mosses around, especially in the water bodies or on the walls. These are different types of mosses. We will individually see these categories. Then there is Pteridophytes, which is a fan type of plants. Gymnosperm, which is non-flowering plants. And again, this we had discussed a bit while we are looking at the flower structure. And the angiosperm, which are the common flowering plants. So these are 5 different types or different categories within the kingdom Plantae. So kingdom Plantae is filled with all the eukaryotes which has chloroplast structure. So within the cells of the kingdom Plantae organisms, they will have chloroplast. So most of them will obviously make their own food, and they are autotrophic in nature. Some of them, they are also heterotrophic, but that proportion is very minute. But most of them, they are autotrophic. Like for example, algae and stuff, even though they do photosynthesis, somehow they are dependent on growth for other structures. We will see that part. So the plant cell contains a rigid cell wall. Again, this you know the difference. What is a plant cell, right? It has cell membrane, cell wall, and it has made up of cellulose and all of those factors that you can mention in the kingdom Plantae. Plants have 2 distinct phases in their life cycle. Again, this commonly you would know. The phases, they are alternative to each other. That means one after another, it keeps on happening. That is diploid saprophytic to haploid gametophytic phase. That means what we had seen in terms of gamete formation to fertilization. Gamete formation is called as gametophytic phase, and diploid saprophytic. Again, the term may not literally mean saprophytic, but because it has diploid nucleus, that was gamete nucleus and the egg cell, right? 2 of them, they were they were haploid. When they were fused with each other, they became diploid. That means complete set of chromosome, that is diploid, and it became diploid phase of the like life cycle of the plant growth. Yeah.
Are we expected to remember Thallophyta?
Yes.
So the diploid saprophytic is when it's in the egg form.
It's in the growing form. So you can forget these two words, diploid saprophytic and haploid gamete. What you need to remember, at some time point it forms gamete. After gamete formation it fertilizes, and after fertilization next generation grows, and again the cycle repeats, right? So that is what is the growth cycle or life cycle of the plants. Yeah.
Those Thallophyta and all those are scientific names?
Yes. And I said we will see them one by one.
So what's the difference between foreign and a normal plant? Like let's say a tomato plant.
Tomato plant is flowering plant, and this is pteridophytes. We'll see the categories. When we'll see the description and characteristic, you will understand all the
Foreign is
differences.
a normal plant.
It's not, I mean, it is a normal plant, but it has specific characteristics. Okay, so again, I'm not sure if you would know this, but I guess I assume that you know this in terms of what is chloroplast, what does it contain, chlorophyll, where is it present in plastid, and so on, right? Because I'm assuming this would have been done in the that cell chapter where you are studying about the plant cell. So that is the first point, which talks about photosynthetic pigment. Plant cells, they are non-motile because they can't move on their own. They reproduce. Sorry.
They can't move on their own.
Movement. Right. I am assuming you don't hear my complete statements or what? Because I'm trying to explain, but I feel somewhere it's lacking. Anyway, so they reproduce asexually. We know the sexual mode of reproduction, right? In animals or humans, that is a sexual mode of reproduction. In plants, there are both ways, sexual as well as asexual. Asexual is when the plant is growing by what we say leaf, or plant is growing by a stem itself without the gamete formation. That is asexual mode of reproduction, or it is also called as vegetative propagation, right? Matlab, like you people know that when you take a rose stem and you put it in the soil, it will grow, right? Or the Brahma Kamal type of plant which grows with the leaf, or cactus type of plant, they also grow by a part of their plant itself, right? So that way, these are all vegetative propagation or asexual mode of reproduction. Whenever there is anther, an ovary or ovules involved, that is sexual mode of reproduction in plants. Yes.
What is non-motile?
Non-moving.
Sir, can you show the previous slide?
Why, sir?
Okay, so the reproduction can happen by sexual as well as asexual means, and in asexual means it is vegetative propagation, like I explained, with the help of either just by leaf or by the stem structure, or sometimes even by root structure. Like you might have seen how means
Asexual.
the plant grows, the cell grows, cell gets nutrition, they differentiate into different types of cell in terms of root, stem, and leaf, and then they start growing. Yes, who has raised hand? Ananya or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, like you said, some plants are heterotrophic. So do they have chloroplast?
Yes, some of them they do.
But then what's the main point? The color? Because if they don't make their own food. Then...
No, see, you might have seen some plants, they grow on the other plants.
Yeah.
So that is something like not completely autotrophic because they are dependent for some nutrition on the other plants.
So is there any name for those type of plants which are autotrophic and heterotrophic?
I'm not too sure of it. I don't know. But Ananya, is that point clear?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, the structure of the plant cell, they have the cell wall and the central vacuole, which is like quite big enough to differentiate it from the animal cell. So these are general characteristics, and plus, of course, they have different organelles for anchorage. That means holding on to the plant structure. That is like root, reproduction, flower, support, stem, and root, and photosynthesis, leaf. So for different organelles, they will have different function. Again, this point you know it very well. Any questions so far again with the general category or general characteristics? Okay, so I guess we will just, how much time do we have? 45, we have time. So a plant kingdom is again further divided into subgroups that we know of those 5 types, and they are majorly based on these 3 different categories. How is the plant body? That is a presence or absence of well differentiated plant body. Like that's when I said Thallophyta, right? That doesn't have distinct structures, right? Because it's like algae, if you would have seen, or that moss, if you would have seen, which doesn't have like a stem and leaf and root and so on. So they don't have well differentiated plant body. And the example of this structure are this root, stem, and leaf. Vascular system, these are the characteristics of a plant. Vascular system, again, you know of xylem and phloem for transportation purpose. Seed formation, again, some of the plant presence or absence of flowers and the seed, that depends on what type of plant it is, whether it is a angiospermic plant or gymnospermic plant. So that is what is the categorization based on these different characteristics. So the whatever 5 types we had seen here, these Thallophyta, Bryophytes, Pteridophytes, Gymnosperm, and Angiosperm, these are dependent on these type of points, like whether it has a complete plant body structure, whether it has a vascular system, or it has a seed formation ability or no. And that is when they are classified further. Yeah. Okay, then these cryptogams, and why did I put this here? Okay, fine. Okay, I remember why did I put it. So these were again 2 different types of classification apart from what we commonly know, like those 5 categories. These cryptogams, these are non-flowering and non-seed bearing plants. So the most of these category, they grow by vegetative propagation, because obviously there is no flower, no seed, so they don't have any other means of reproduction. And the phanerogams, which are flowering and seed bearing plants, for example your gymnosperm and angiosperm. So these are the 2 categories. Again, that's an additional information that you need not know. Again, I need not remember as well. You can know it, but you need not remember it for the exam purposes. So these are the 2 categories of the plant based on whether they contain flower or don't contain flower and seed.
That is going to come for example, the 2 types.
But I might ask it because we have covered it in the class. Janकारी hai. Okay, so that is the how the plants they have been classified so far. Again, there is a small video. I am not going to show it. It's hardly a minute, but you can watch it on your own. We will. कहाँ से देखोगे, मतलब जो डॉम में करते हो ना आप लोग,
नहीं चलता
गूगल क्लासरूम अच्छे से चलता है और इवन ड्राइव अच्छे से चलता है,
Shall we push it? Right.
It's always there on the drive. Okay, so the first category of the plant or within the kingdom, hello,
Find something.
within the kingdom Plantae is the Thallophyta. So Thallophyta is again autotrophic. So all the characteristics which are true for the kingdom Plantae, they will be true for Thallophyta as well. So they are of course autotrophic, but most importantly, these are aquatic plants, right? Mr. Arman, if you don't want to pay attention, you can feel free to go outside the class. So
Need to know so much detail of
you need to know few of the characteristics and the examples.
So biophytes are also
Bryophytes.
Bryophytes are also cryptograms.
Yeah. Okay, so thallophytes, they lack well differentiated body. Now, what does it mean by well differentiated body? You know, a plant has roots, stem, leaves, and so on. So these thallophyte category of the plants, they don't have these well differentiated structures in terms of roots, in terms of stem, and whatever we call as leaf. So, and the plant body is thallus-like. Thallus-like means it's kind of merged structure, right? That is what is thallus. So this thallophyta, these are like it actually includes the primitive plants. Primitive plants, these are the earlier versions of the plants. Like whenever the evolution started, obviously it started with the unicellular cells, then they become multicellular. So whatever that organization of the cells that became like first type of plants, that's what is primitive, and that category is like thallophyte. So the plant body is thallus, and this can be filamentous. Filamentous is again like something like what we have seen in fungus, but here there is a little leaf-like arrangement. So if you look at the again, I'm sure you would have seen aquatic plant that especially they grow in the river and so on. So azula is one of the commonly observed plant in the rivers. That's also used for nitrogen fixation in the farms and so on. But again, most of these aquatic plants, they have this filamentous because they are connected with their root-like structures to each other. They can be colonial, that means they can grow in the colonies, can be branched or unbranched. They can have branches or they may not have branches. Again, the branching structure is not what we commonly assume, like in terms of higher plants, right? Or like a banyan tree or mango tree, not those kind of branches. These are just the branches of the thallus structure, that is not completely grown structure of the stem and the leaf part, that is the thallus.
So I didn't get what thallus means.
Thallus is the combination of the leaf and stem, but it is not differentiated through leaf and stem and such.
That's why the plant body is thallus.
Yes.
He differentiated the leaf and stem, but
The stem is not completely grown, it's only the leaf structure that you see. Okay, so the examples, it includes your green algae, red algae, brown algae. These are three different types of algae which are commonly observed. So let me show you that as well. Red algae. Again, you might have seen these examples of red algae, but not so commonly around us, especially in the water bodies. No, this is different from the corals. Yeah, so that is red algae. Green algae surely you would have seen. No, not green algae, right? So these are like different types of green algae that you would see. Yeah? Excluding that human. Then brown algae. It's a brain. Yeah, so these are the brown algae again. So again, but it's not that you need to know the structural details of this. Obviously the pigmentation is different in these different algae, and that's why they are differently called so. And the other common examples are Spirogyra. Spirogyra is again very commonly, again, it's not Spirogyra. So this is like microscopic structure. So because it has this spiral twist like structure, that is why it is called as Spirogyra. This is what you would have seen commonly, right, in the plant bodies again. Like especially this is surely present in the pond next to the library, right? Because these are like very long thread like structure, and if you observe under the microscope, what you see is something like this structure. So that is Spirogyra. Other names, they are little complicated, so you can try to remember, but again not compulsory. Yeah, so for sure you should know minimum 2 examples of each of the categories. So here you can remember green algae, red algae, brown algae, and the Spirogyra, right? These are the commonly found examples. Again, any question in Thallophyta?
No, sir.
Thanks for that lazy, lousy no. Okay, Bryophyta we will continue in the next class. We will stop here as of now. Yes.
Please, previous slide. Yes. So previous slide once, please.
Yeah, I will come to that. Are there any questions? Anyone? No questions? Okay, fine.
Hi, sir.